Welcome to the Get in the Fight podcast. My name is Nate Whitson, and I'm the founder of Get in the Fight Ministries and our exclusive online fight club for Christian men. Everything we do here is dedicated to helping Christian men become the men that God meant for them to be. So if you're looking for helpful content and conversations that can help you to grow and become the man that God made you to be, then you're in the right place. But before we get started, please do me a huge favor and be sure to subscribe, click the like button, and then leave us a 5-star review. Doing that helps us to reach more men who are looking for content just like this. Also, if you'd like to learn more about our mission and how to get involved or how to join the Fight Club, then head on over to getinthefight.club. That's getinthefight.club and learn more today. But without further ado, it's time to get in the fight. So let's go. The feminine heart. There are also 3 desires that I have found essential to a woman's heart, which are not entirely different from a man's, and yet they remain distinctly feminine. Not every woman wants a battle to fight, but every woman yearns to be fought for. Listen to the longing of a woman's heart. She wants to be more than noticed. She wants to be wanted. She wants to be pursued. I just want to be a priority to someone, a friend in her 30s told me. And her childhood dreams of a knight in shining armor coming to her rescue are not girlish fantasies. They are the core of the feminine heart and the life she knows she was made for. So men make the mistake of thinking then that the woman is the adventure. But that is where the relationship immediately goes downhill. A woman doesn't want to be the adventure. She wants to be caught up into something greater than herself. Our friend went on to say, I know myself and I know I'm not the adventure. So when a man makes me the point, I grow bored immediately. I know that story. I want to be taken into the one that I don't know. And finally, every woman wants to have a beauty to unveil, not to conjure, but to unveil. Most women feel the pressure to be beautiful from very young, but that is not what I speak of. There's also a deep desire to simply and truly be the beauty and then also to be delighted in. Most little girls will remember playing dress-up or wedding day or twinkling skirts, those flowing dresses that were perfect for spinning around in. She'll put her pretty dress on, come into the living room, and she'll twirl. What she longs for is to capture her daddy's delight. My wife remembers standing on top of the coffee table as a girl of 5 or 6 and singing her heart out. Do you see me? Asks the heart of every girl. And are you captivated by what you see? The world kills a woman's heart when it tells her to be tough, efficient, and independent. Sadly, Christianity has missed her heart as well. Walk into most churches in America, have a look around, and ask yourself this question: what is a Christian woman? Again, don't listen to what is said. Look at what you find there. There's no doubt about it. You'd have to admit that a Christian woman is tired. All we've offered the feminine soul is pressure to be a good servant. No one is fighting for her heart. There is no grand adventure to be swept up in, and every woman doubts very much that she has a beauty to unveil. A man must know, then, that he is powerful. He must know that he has what it takes. And a woman must know that she is beautiful. She must know that she is worth fighting for. For if you are going to know who you truly are as a man, if you truly are going to find a life worth living, if you're going to love a woman deeply and not pass on your confusion to your children, you simply must get your heart back. That there is a reading from chapter 1 of a book called Wild at Heart, one of my favorite books by a guy named John Eldredge. And so we've been talking through and going through this series, and we're going to continue to work our way in this podcast through certain chapters of the book. Maybe not everyone, maybe everyone, I don't know yet. But if you've never read Wild at Heart, I encourage you to pick it up. You can go to my Amazon store on the website and pick that up today, and I highly encourage it. But we're continuing a review of this book, and in one of the previous podcasts, we were talking about man's 3 big desires, and I just kind of want to rehash those in super quick form here today. We can go back and listen to that podcast and listen to that on your own, but I want to just remember what those were for you in case you forget. Every man's 3 big desires are this: a battle to fight, an adventure to live, and a beauty to rescue. So we've kind of talked about those in previous conversations, but today I really want to focus on loving a woman deeply and understanding how to love her and really what her three big desires are. So if a man's three big desires are a battle to fight, an adventure to live, and a beauty to rescue, then what are a woman's? In our quest to be men who are fighting for the life that God has made for us to live, part of that has to be then to understand the heart of a woman for us to live out our role as men. And so when we talk about this, we're talking a ton about the heart of a man. And it seems to me like anytime we do that, just from personal experience, maybe even from my own dialogue, I know that issues of the heart tend to be ones where we kind of brush them aside. We don't really want to deal with that. We kind of think of them as kind of wimpy, very feminine, and it's just like, not something that real men do. But I want to push against that. Obviously, I want to talk about that because I know John, in his book and in his decades of working with men and Christian men, he would argue very strongly that a man needs to recover his heart if he wants to live out the great story of his life. And again, he says here in his book that if you're going to know who you truly are as a man, if you're going to love a woman deeply and not pass on the confusion to your children, then you simply must get your heart back. So I know that when we talk like that, again, it's easy to kind of roll our eyes and just kind of be like, oh gosh, here we go again. But I think that it's worth pressing into this conversation for a few minutes here. You may not think that you have a heart issue, but I want to share some ideas with you. I think some signs and some symptoms that may prove to you that what's really going on with you that you haven't identified as being a heart issue actually is. And so here's some ideas that I wrote down that I think are worth us considering today. See if any of these are things that maybe you can relate with. Do you have unresolved anger and you're not sure where it comes from or why you react the way that you do? Do you have childhood voices that continue to haunt you and the messages that you received as a kid play over and over again in your head, even though that was decades ago? Do you deal with pornography and lust and it dominates your mind and you struggle to find ways to defeat the temptations? Are you a man who lacks a passion for things that you once did, maybe things that you treasured or wanted or had set out to accomplish, but now you've kind of pushed them off to the side and you lack that passion? Maybe you're on the other side of lacking passion and you actually have an extreme drivenness, but you don't really know why. You're a guy that likes to get stuff done, has to be moving on to something new. You're always building something, always creating something, always busy, always on the go, always trying to win at all costs. Or maybe you're a guy that's struggling in a relationship. Maybe you're dating, you're in college, wondering if this is the woman to marry, but it just seems like every relationship you're in, you're struggling. Maybe you're married now, you're bored. Maybe your relationship has lost that loving feeling, and you're just getting through the day like you're strangers in the same house. Maybe some of that connects with you. When you think about the heart of a man and you think about the issues that we're dealing with here, you have to be able to pause long enough to say, what's happening here with this anger that I'm feeling, this drivenness that I'm feeling, this lack of passion that I'm feeling. These are all things that have to do with the heart. And if we are going to live out the story that we so desperately want to live, to be men of God, men of great character, men of discipline and strength and honor and joy, if we're going to become that man, then we have to kind of look inside. We have to lift up the hood and see, what is happening here. Hey guys, I hope you're enjoying the conversation so far. And if you are, please do us a huge favor and be sure to subscribe, click the like button, and then leave us a 5-star review. It only takes a few seconds to do this, but it makes a huge difference for us, and it helps us to reach more men who are looking for content just like this. Thanks so much for listening and helping us out. Now back to the show. If we are going to live out the story that we so desperately want to live, to be men of God, men of great character, men of discipline and strength and honor and joy, if we're going to become that man, then we have to kind of look inside. We have to lift up the hood and see, what is happening here. There's a lot of things that I think are battling for our attention or battling for our heart. And there are some things at stake that if we don't face up to what's happening, if we don't really deal with this issue, that we're going to have some problems. And the first problem that I can see happening here is if we never recover our heart, then one of the things we're going to do is wound our children. And, one of the things that I'd mentioned as a sign or a symptom that maybe your heart is in trouble was those voices that you hear from childhood. Maybe you're a person who had people speak things into your life, or just negative people. Maybe they were abusive with their words. Maybe you're like me and you're a words of affirmation guy. And so even people who haven't tried to hurt me have certainly hurt me with their words. And you just replay that over and over in your head. You can't shake some of that stuff. Well, you have a woundedness that was passed on to you from decades ago. And one of the things that we unintentionally do to our children and maybe grandchildren and beyond is that if we don't get healthy, then we pass on some unhealthy things to them as well. And so there's our children's future, grandchildren's future at stake if we don't learn to deal with some of these signs and symptoms that are in our way. I think another thing that happens is that when men don't deal with their heart, we simply go to our cave. And you've probably heard that phrase before, but men go to a cave, and really it's this internal place that we go to where we just push everything aside, turn everything off, and just go numb. And that's dangerous, of course, because as men who are fully alive in Christ, we have to deal with reality. We have to deal with the truth of what's happening here. And when we don't, we can't fully express our life or our love for our woman in this case the way that we were meant to. And so we have got to get out of the cave and start getting out of the garage or out of the hobbies or out of the just the numbness of turning the TV on, whatever it is for you. We make ourselves busy, or we just get bored and we turn into games and we put on the computer and we scroll and we just kind of skim through life. And that's really where the cave exists. And that's at stake for us if we don't learn to deal with some of these things. I think the third part is that if we don't deal with our heart, we'll never be able to lift up or help the women in our life to recover theirs. So our ability to serve and to sacrifice and to give of ourselves is dependent upon us being able to be healthy and have our hearts restored. So there's a lot at stake here, I guess, is what I want you to hear. It's not something that is just soft and feminine. God made us whole, and we are interconnected. Your body, your mind, your heart, your soul, all of it is so interwoven that when your heart is unhealthy, the rest of your life is too. And that's really what some of those signs and symptoms kind of reveal to us is something else that's going on below the surface. So now I want to just transition for a second and just say, okay, there's a lot at stake. We know that. And we're seeing signs and symptoms of a hurt heart through all of these things that we just talked about. And we know we need to recover that. But now I want to shift our attention to say, like, what are the three big things that John says in his book are what every woman desires most? And again, when you do this, have a conversation like this, you're going to run into women to say, like, that's not me. I'm not like that. That could be true. That it also could just be that she doesn't recognize how to think through her desires and she hasn't pinpointed it. Or maybe it's just not true for her. But these are John's three things that we'll take his word for it because he's been in the trenches a lot longer. And I want us to at least accept these as things that we need to embrace as men to understand about women. And so the first one is this. The first big desire is that a woman yearns to be fought for, that she wants to be wanted. When I think about this, I think about the dating years, and you think about, when you're dating, you are just putting on your best show. She knows during the dating years that she is wanted. But you fast forward and you look at men and women living together 10, 20, 30 years later, and for a lot of marriages, it just fizzles. Somewhere along the line, we lose the ability or the focus to make sure that your woman still feels wanted. And this is a big deal because, when you have a responsibility to her and you shirk that responsibility, she also gets wounded and has to go figure out, where can I fill in this need? And she has to do that somewhere outside of you. That's point number one. She wants to be wanted. Number two is that she wants to share an adventure. A woman doesn't want to be the adventure because she's saying, if you remember that quote from the beginning, she's like, I know that story. And it doesn't captivate her like it captivates us. She, like us, wants to live a bigger life. A woman wants an adventure that is big and meaningful and purposeful, that is full of value and meaning to Christ. And how can she do this if she is overwhelmed, overworked, and stressed? John says that when you look around and you see where women are at, the word that probably describes them most is tired. They are tired. We had talked about in the other podcast that the word that men probably could use to describe them is bored. The word that women use is tired. And so a woman deep inside wants this adventure. She wants this bigger, fuller life. And again, we should understand that because we do too. But we get so self-focused in our own journey that we forget that we are one with this woman. When you get married, you are becoming one, and we eventually become two, and we split up a little bit. And it's like, I go do my thing, she goes and does hers, and we lose ourself. We lose our marriage somewhere in the middle of that. And so we need to look then and say, like, where can we encourage her and invite her to find out how to live her deepest and best life as well? How did God make her, and what is this adventure that she is longing for? The third point of the three big desires that every woman has is that she wants to unveil her beauty. I have 4 daughters, and so when I read books or like the excerpt that John talks about, the little girl that wants to come and twirl, I can relate to that story very clearly because every one of my girls has been this way. They come in front of me, and still to this day, depending on their age, it's now like prom dresses for some of them, but I still have some younger kids too who are literally today just putting on ballerina shoes and wanting to show me their new dance they made up, stuff like that. And they're constantly saying, Daddy, watch me. Daddy, 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 watch this, right? What's interesting is that your wife isn't going to beg you to watch her, but that little girl in her has never gone away. She still is hoping that you see her. She is still wanting to be desirable to you. She still wants you to understand that what makes her most beautiful isn't this changing body that gets older and older every year, although that is obviously something that we love and find beautiful about them. But what she wants to be known for is who she really is, and that you would see her for who she is and value that. So the 3 big things: a woman wants to be fought for. She wants you to continue to want her. She wants to live a bigger life and an adventurous life. And she wants to be seen for who she is in all of her beauty. And there's 3 things then that I think men can do today. Number 1 is we need to fight for the rescuing of her heart. Because like us, a woman has been through a journey of all kinds of hard things. Arrows is what John calls them in his books, but arrows of the heart. So words that have been spoken that have beaten them down, life, disappointment, discouragement, marriages that are struggling because their man doesn't know them, right? That's why we're talking about this. They're hurt and disappointed because their expectations were that we would know how to treat them and love them and care for them. And we don't. We don't know that. We need to be taught these things. We need to practice and train in these things. And so one of the things that we can do is fight for her heart and get to know her heart. It's really what this podcast is about. It's so much of what Get in the Fight Ministries is about, is that we can recover as men who we are supposed to be. And in that, we will then be able to sacrificially love and serve in all kinds of capacities, but in particular with the woman that we love. The second thing that we can do is fight for our marriages. If you're single right now and hoping to be married at one point, fight for your marriage today while you're single. Learn to embrace conversations like this. Talk to men who have been married and really ask them their opinion on things that trip them up or where things go wrong, things like that. Fight for it now in your purity. Fight for it in becoming the kind of man who will have less issues than some of us who went into it so blindly and didn't prepare our own hearts. If you are married, though, one of the things I encourage you to do in fighting for your marriage is to talk to your wife and to ask her really good questions. Find out from her, what are your dreams for the future? One of the things that I have a conversation about a lot in my line of work is I will ask clients of mine, they come in, they're talking about wealth management and financial concepts, and I will ask them early on in getting to know them, like, what do you foresee for the future? How do you picture it? It's amazing how many times that the two sides, the husband and the wife, have never talked about it. You're so busy living life, paying bills, running kids around, doing all this stuff that you don't know, and you don't ask each other. Ask your wife then, what do you dream about for the future? How do you foresee it? What would you love to accomplish? What are some of the things that maybe you've never gotten to do that you've always wanted to? Get to know her dreams. Get to understand the visions that she has. And then pray for ways that God can use you to help to bring her into that place where she's living the best life possible, and you are instrumental in doing those things that matter most to her. So fight for your marriage, and then fight for her beauty. This might just be simple things that you know already intuitively to do, but if you're married, you need to keep dating your wife. I know I have a calendar reminder on my phone that says every quarter, plan something special. It means a ton to your wife if you are the one that says, hey, I've been thinking about you. I put this together. This is what we're going to go do. And, again, it doesn't have to cost you a lot of money. It could just be, we're going to go to a park in a different city we've never been to and grab ice cream and just go chat. And then you can talk about your marriage and talk about those things we just mentioned. But date her regularly. When you're with her, even just sitting on the couch, put your phone away, right? Pay attention to what's going on with her. Ask her questions. Find out how her day is going, and then ask more questions about that. Tell me more about that. Tell me what I can do for you. Find out, what would make the biggest difference in her day if she had one thing taken off her plate, and see if there's a way that you can do that. Use your words. This is an area where for a lot of guys, we're just not good at the words part of it. If you struggle to talk out loud with your wife, then put it on paper. That could be just simply buying a card for no reason and just saying, I love you, and leaving it on her pillow or something like that before you leave. I certainly encourage you to talk out loud to your wife. Shouldn't be that hard, but we all know it can be, right? It can be challenging if you've been out of the fight for a long time in this area, and it's not something that comes naturally to you. It can be challenging. So start small. It doesn't have to be a lot, but express what you think, express how you feel, and put it in a card or a letter would be amazing. Your wife would love that. Find ways, though, to express that she's still beautiful to you. Let her know that you care about her. Let her know that you see all that she's doing. Let her know that you are aware of who she is and how beautiful she is, both inside and out. So now I just want you to think like this as we wrap up this conversation. Imagine what could happen if a man recovers his heart, if you recover your heart in these things. Imagine with those symptoms that we've talked about, where you really start to get in touch with what's happening underneath the hood, and you start to see less and less of those things that drivenness, that anxiety, those voices can calm down because you know who you are in Christ, right? Like as your heart gets healthy, you should start to exhibit, a lot less of the signs and symptoms that you have now. And it's going to do some amazing things. Number one, when you get healthy, you are able to help other people get healthy. And that's the point of being a man. And so when you get your heart right and healthy, imagine what could happen in your relationship with your wife or your future wife when you are living your best and you're able to, out of sacrifice and service, help your wife come alive too. Imagine what that could look like. And again, rather than focusing on the external stuff, I'm saying we need to focus on fixing our heart, letting God come in and do what only He can do. Because when we become alive in Him, we are going to benefit from it, because the relationships around us, in particular with our women, is certainly going to get better. And so encourage you to just fast forward in your brain and just say, this hard work of dealing with the heart is going to be worth it. Not only is your wife's heart going to recover and you will benefit from that, but your heart gets better and stronger by simply working on it and doing these things, fighting for your wife's heart, fighting for your marriage, fighting to become the man that God made you to be is what we're here for. That's what this whole thing is about. And so I just want you to see that your preferred future begins and ends with getting your heart right with God and with yourself. And as you do that, you are able then out of that fullness to give to others. And so I just want to remind you again, I'm just going to read that quote from the end of chapter 1 of Wild at Heart, where John says this: if you're going to know who you truly are as a man, if you're going to find a life worth living, if you're going to love a woman deeply and not pass on your confusion to your children, you simply must get your heart back. So that's what I'm praying for you today, that we become men of honor and discipline and strength and joy, and that God does that work in us so that we can not pass on that confusion to the next generation, and so that our future with our wives is better and better every day. If you want to hear more about this topic, go to my website, getinthefight.club/blog, and you can read more there, have different articles and conversations on things like this. And then just encourage you again, join the Fight Club. This is a group of men who are having conversations just like this together on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. And we're simply just saying, like, I don't have this all put together, but I want to invite men in who are going to help hold me accountable to being the man that I want to be, that God made me to be. And we are certainly better together than trying to do this on our own. So check that out, getinthefight.club. Look at joining the Fight Club, and hopefully we'll see you on the inside real soon. That's it for now. Get in the fight, and we'll talk to you soon. Hey guys, thanks so much for being here today and listening to the show. Please be sure to head over to the website at getinthefight.club. And before you go, if you haven't already, please subscribe, click the like button, and leave us a positive 5-star review. It makes a huge difference whenever you do. Have a great day. Go get in the fight.